Good Monday afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to Shooting the Breeze with Zack Heydorn, talking all things WWE Summerslam 2022. I love doing this show. Love doing this show. Thanks for being with me. We're gonna kick back, relax, and just kind of chit chat, shoot the breeze, get it on SummerSlam. And what I think was a pretty damn good start to the Triple H era of creative in WWE, the first pay-per-view event with Vince McMahon not at the helm of the company or the creative side. And I think you saw some small kind of adjustments to the show. And I think that's what, to me, that's what stood out just throughout, is that just the tone felt different. Is that how you guys felt too? I mean, like, you had the stadium lit up like WWE does so well. You had all that in place. You had all that there. But I don't know. It just felt a little bit different. Would love to know your thoughts. So let me know what you think. Did you have a different vibe watching SummerSlam this year than previous pay-per-views, knowing that it was under kind of like a new regime? Let me know in the comments. And before we get going any further, thank you for being here. Thank you very much for press and play. Thanks for watching. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, we did a live SummerSlam watch along. Had a little watch party here on the PWTorch YouTube channel during SummerSlam. Cracked open some cold ones. Had some special guests from the Torch, Fightful, and just kind of kicked back and just watched the show together. And talked about the outcomes, talked about the matches themselves, kind of like picked our jaw up off the floor while we were watching the main event. So it was a really fun time. And I mean, look, you can go back and you can watch all 4 hours of the show, no doubt. But that is a tall task. I totally understand that. But, we had some fun, like, just breaking down the matches. And so, pick out a match or two and just kind of sit with us while we so you can kind of gauge like where we were at with things when we watched it. It was a really, really fun time. And we will continue to do that for WWE pay-per-views, AEW pay-per-views, and whatever else it's the pay-per-view circuit for the rest of this year and beyond. So definitely check that out. But hey, look, thanks for being here, shooting the breeze with me today on SummerSlam. Bottom line is, look, when the ring gets flipped and propped up in the air by a tractor during a match, it's pretty hard to give this thumbs down after that happens. As I said, I think as Triple H's first PLE pay-per-view as a head of creative, it went about as good as it could have gone, I think, especially given the circumstances with a lot of the matches and the rematches and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We had storyline pivots, we had some returns, and then of course we had just memorable matches all the way through. And so that's, thumbs up. Let's go through the show. And they started off real hot. Bianca Bellaire versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. I thought they did a really bad job, let's just call it out there, hyping this match up and building to this. I guess this is technically the trilogy, but really like the rematch from WrestleMania 38. And, it didn't have enough oomph for me. Like, I wanted to see Bellaire and Lynch like promo against each other. I wanted to see them, go back and forth and have Becky talk about what the title means to her and have Bianca kind of get away from like the EST type stuff and just talk like a real person, like a real person that's in a competitive fight. I think that would have played really nicely. They didn't go that route. But the match itself was really good once it got into the ring. So I gave it 3.5 stars in my Torch report. And it was kind of surprising how things went. I mean, Bianca got in a lot of offense. She controlled a lot of the match and then won. And like, you don't see that too often in WWE in general, but especially not with like a top star like Becky Lynch. And so to see Bianca take that control there initially while we were watching, you can go back and you can check out our SummerSlam watch party and kind of see our real-time analysis of this. But it felt like, oh man, like maybe WWE is going to pull the trigger and go with Becky here, because that was just how the cadence of the match was going. Like it felt that, man, okay, Bianca's getting a lot right now, but you know, that's not gonna last. I mean, that'd be very much on par with the WWE formula, but it didn't. You know, we got good action, we got it inside the ring, we got it outside the ring, but in the end, it was a KOD, another KOD from Bianca Belair, and she makes the cover 1, 2, 3, and it's a clean win for Bianca. The match was good. The post-match stuff, that's going to make a lot of people happy. And folks, I'm not one to like pat myself on the back, but I called this for Becky Lynch, and it being one of those moments where, hey, you know, you can kind of like play right back into the fans wanting to cheer her if you have her show a little respect to Bianca Belair after the loss. Like that's kind of like a classy thing to do. That's like the honorable babyface thing to do. And sure enough, we saw it. We saw it come back and play. We have Becky. She shakes hands with Bianca Belair, and then they embrace. They say some words to each other, and then they move on. It was really well done, because what I liked about it was it felt tense. You know, it wasn't like totally like out of left field in terms of how it felt, where you're like real happy. Oh, this is happening. It felt like, oh, wow, okay, is this happening? Is it? Are they really going to do that? When's Becky going to pull back and haul off and punch her in the face? Like there was that underlying tension of, is this actually going to stick? And I thought that tension really helped make the moment, because it made the turn feel big and like that. Hey, wow, Becky has kind of seen the error of her ways, if you will, and they executed that really well, and the drama built really nicely. I like that. And then you had the returns. Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Shirai from NXT. And so well done. So well done. Bringing back Bayley as a heel was an interesting call. If you didn't turn Becky Lynch babyface, which is what they ultimately did on this show, I think it would have been a bad move. But now that Becky Lynch is a babyface again, you know, there's a lot of opponents that she can work with, including Bayley, but also Dakota Kai, Io Shirai, and same thing with Bianca Belair. Bianca can work with all three of them too, and that is a rich pool of talent that both of those baby faces, Belair and Lynch, can work with. And that's what you want. You want that pool stocked so you can just keep feeding them. So this is good, and I like the idea of Bayley being a kind of a head of a faction. Like it's her, it's Dakota Kai, it's Io Shirai. They're all different in terms of what they bring to the table in the ring, and it's going to feel fresh on Monday Night Raw, no doubt. And ultimately, this is, as I've always said, this is going. Lynch is heading to WrestleMania to face Ronda Rousey. That's what's at play here. And if you look at this move through that lens, it makes even more sense. And so this gives fans permission to cheer Becky Lynch. That is what they were fighting against for a year. We can debate over and over whether or not we think it was a shrewd move. I think it had its pros and cons. But they're back now on track. And this match is going to be remembered for that more than anything else. What do you think of the match? What would you have given it from a star rating perspective? Let me know in the comment section. All right. Match number 2, Logan Paul versus The Miz. The only thing you really have to know about this one, right, guys, is that, you know, Logan Paul got cheered. That's all. I mean, that right there makes the match successful, given where things were at. They were ready to boo him out of the building on Monday Night Raw. The audiences throughout his run of appearances just, you know, we're not into him from a talking perspective. And the guy just comes across as so arrogant and so obnoxious. Like, it's like, oh God, like get this guy out of here. But yet there he is trying to play it like a babyface. Well, he, for whatever, say what you will about his work on the microphone, but he worked as a babyface in the ring during this match, and he looked good. He looked like he belonged. He hit his spots. I think more so than that, like you saw kind of a natural, like the right natural instinct during certain situations in terms of selling, in terms of like even like a quick like glance to the audience for something, or like feed a reaction or try to get more of said reaction like that. He kind of hit those spots really well. AJ Styles, I think, ran out there and they had the Styles spot built into the match just in case things went a little awry with the reaction to Paul, but they didn't need it. It didn't hurt, but he held things on his own. Let's talk about The Miz because Logan Paul looked great. I think his moves, he's not fully comfortable yet in the role of professional wrestler, but he's clearly shown like an acumen for this. But The Miz pulled all the good stuff out of him. Like The Miz just laid almost a perfect foundation in this match for Logan Paul to get cheered. It was because of his obnoxiousness. The fact that he really didn't have any like flashy moves, which I think is smart for a heel. Like Miz, there's nothing really to cheer for there. And I think, by the end of the match, they wanted Logan Paul to win, and then popped big when he did. So they steered this thing into the right direction. I was interested in this match, as you guys know, because I wanted to see what the reaction to him would be like and how they would combat it. But they didn't need to. This worked. I gave it 3.25 stars for my report for the Torch. And this certainly won't be the last time that we see Logan Paul. I mean, he's if he were to like take some time and really put effort into this, I think he could be a pretty big star. Bobby Lashley versus Theory for the United States Championship. This was shockingly straightforward, right? I was expecting at least some kind of chicanery or shenanigans, and I guess it was kind of there at the beginning of the match when Theory attacked Lashley with the briefcase before things really got started. But in the end, the booking, the execution was Lashley goes over with the Hurt Lock clean. It was like there was not even any attempt at all to try and protect Theory, which I was surprised by, just because he was like teasing all throughout the build to SummerSlam since Money in the Bank that he's going to cash in during the main event, during the last man standing match, Roman and Brock. And so even if you're going to kind of go the WWE route, so to speak, and you're going to have Theory job to Lashley in this match so that Lashley can keep the United States Championship, you might want to like protect him a little bit if he's going to go on and cash in and, I don't know, win or even lose. You want to see him out there, somebody that has some credibility. This didn't give him any. This gave him nothing. And he wasn't protected in the main event either, which we'll get to in a minute. So straightforward, not the best showing from Theory, not from a ring perspective. It was fine, but from a booking perspective, and kind of like, hey, WWE is taking care of Theory's perception, even if he's going to do the job here. That was not there. And so if you're Theory, when you put that together along with what happened in the main event and the fact that there's new leadership on top, like maybe you got to, I don't want to say do some politicking, but maybe you have to go backstage and figure out just what the heck's going on, because that's not a push. That's not an outcome. Those aren't booking decisions that say, hey, this is going to be our guy. And I don't know. Now I'm sitting here talking about it. He didn't really have much of that type of aura anyway, I suppose. So maybe in the end, they don't really think this is that big of a deviation. I just feel like it was. Like after Money in the Bank, it was just him, and he was kind of the star of that show in a lot of ways by the end. But that's really only a big win that he's gotten. So we'll see. We'll have to see how it goes. But not the greatest match in the world, and not the greatest night for Theory. I gave this 2 stars in my Torch report. Up next was Pat McAfee versus Happy Corbin. Great stuff all around, especially when you look at it through the context of it being WWE. This is like exactly the kind of thing WWE wants. McAfee got a big babyface reaction, one that should kind of like turn the heads of the other babyfaces on the WWE roster, because it looks like this guy he's not a regular wrestler. Yeah, he's on TV, and yeah, he's got other things going on. He's a public figure, and people know him. But from a babyface perspective, look, he was one of the most over of the whole show. Pat McAfee, the guy from the podcast, the guy from the commentary table, not Bobby Lashley, not Riddle, not Drew McIntyre, like Pat McAfee. And on one hand, it's like, okay, that's good. But on the other hand, it's like, wait, where are we going wrong with our other babyface stars? Why are they not getting the same reaction that McAfee is getting? That's the question WWE should be asking themselves. That's what the talent should be asking themselves as well. So the match itself was really a paint by numbers. And because the audience was so invested in McAfee winning, it didn't need to be fancy. It did not need any kind of special bells and whistles. It just needed to be out there. And it needed McAfee to come across as likable and Corbin to come across as unlikable. That's it. And the match very much was formulated, it seemed, with that approach in mind. Because there was that investment, everything that happened in the match, even though there wasn't big, huge spots, there wasn't anything like that, it mattered. Like, it felt important. It felt dramatic because everybody was so invested. McAfee looked good. He had that bump over the top rope to the outside of the ring. That was pretty intense. But other than that, I thought he, hit his spots and did his thing. And I think, when you compare McAfee versus Logan Paul, they're pretty close. They're pretty close in terms of how they did. But I think I would take Logan Paul, to be completely frank. I think he was just really good. And not that McAfee was bad, but Paul's just better, I think. So this was what it was. McAfee winning was the only way to go with this one, right? I mean, like, you had an audience that was just salivating at the notion of him winning. Why not just go with that? Like, I don't think this is a time to mess around, with outcomes and booking. Like, go with it, run with it. The fans want to see this guy win. It's Happy Corbin, not going to mess up anything. Give McAfee the win, and that's exactly what they did. I gave this 3 stars. 3 stars, a pretty damn good night for McAfee and for Corbin. Oh boy, the Mysterios versus the Judgment Day. Bit of a come down match, I think, right, on the show. I think that's fair to say. And really, it's not a come down match because the match was bad per se, but just wasn't all that memorable outside of the Edge return, which happened at the end. He looked great, had a new look, and I thought that looked good for him. I thought that he had a new red T-shirt out that was pretty darn cool, and I'm thinking that thing's going to sell like hotcakes on WWEshop.com. But really, that's it. Like, that's all that happened here, and so it succeeded. If the end game is, hey, we want Edge to come out of this looking really strong, if that's the end game, that I think is thumbs up. They get a pat on the back for achieving that. But other than that, though, I just don't think there was a lot to it. It never really got into even a second gear, I'd say. So I'm just going to leave that at that. 1 3/4 stars. I gave that one. So one of my lower grades on the show for sure. Not the lowest, but one of the lowest. And still no Dominic turn. WTF is with that. From there, we've got tag team action. The Usos versus the Street Profits with Double J Jeff Jarrett as the special guest referee for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships. And look, guys, I mean, God damn, excuse me. If you have heard any of my SummerSlam preview analysis or week-to-week analysis on this program, the Jeff Jarrett's involvement really hurt things, in my opinion. Like, really took the wind out of the sails of this being like an actual good competitive follow-up match to what they did at Money in the Bank. On this night at SummerSlam, the match was fine, but the finish, brutal, right? I mean, like, look, Montez Ford, like the babyface of all babyfaces, the guy that exudes so much charisma as a babyface, is in there and angry about a very fair count by Jeff Jarrett. What's he arguing about? It was a 2 count. He's had many 2 counts in his career, like in many of his matches, right? I mean, there's stock full of them. What made this one different than the others? Jarrett didn't look like he was trying to cheat. Nothing like that. That was not part of the narrative of the match. And so to have Montez Ford act that way is not how you want to be framing your baby faces. Like, if a heel turns on the horizon for Ford, okay, maybe you can kind of like look back and go, all right, well, I guess that made sense. But then the question I would ask is why in the heck are we turning Montez Ford heel when he's got all this love as a babyface and is really coming along as a babyface and finding his groove a little bit, finding that voice? Like, you don't pivot to a singles run and then have him completely change his character. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So no matter which way you slice it, it was booked. It was not booked well, period. The Usos were the Usos. And I say that with all the like respect and I guess admiration, as possible. Like, I say that in the best way because they were out there trying to convey the sense that they're big time stars and that's it. And they succeed, they succeed in that endeavor, which helps everybody that tangles with them during these matches. I mean, it just does. 2 3/4 stars is what I gave this one on the Torch. The Usos retained the titles. Ford looked real pouty at the end, and man, I just hope this is not a heel turn. I mean, I really hope it's not a Montez Ford heel turn. I think you'd be like swimming upstream as far as that goes, much like Becky in a lot of ways, just because, look, he's going to be over as babyface. I don't think you have to worry about that. We had the SmackDown Women's Championship up next. Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey. This felt, by the end, like Triple H realized, oh, crap, we have to book a finish here. What the hell are we going to do? And it's rare that those matches actually end up working out. And this didn't. This really didn't. This is the lowest star rating of the show for me at 1.5. Probably could even go lower than that. But that's where it is. Liv Morgan, we'll talk about her first. She looked awful out there. Not from a wrestling perspective, but because, look, she clearly tapped out. She tapped out before the 3 count. So she should not be champion anymore. It's that simple. But then she doubled down on that story and celebrated like she did win legitimately when she knew that she didn't. And I think as a babyface, that's really unbecoming. Like, that's not how you want to sell that win. If you absolutely have to go this route, if you absolutely have to go the route where, okay, we're going to do this finish, then Morgan has to show a little bit of remorse as a babyface. A little bit of like, oh man, like, all right, I won, but I didn't want it that way. Right? Like, to me, that's like, there's your nuance. That's what you want to be able to tap into. But you can't do that when you're celebrating like you actually just won something, when really you didn't. You skirted a loss. I thought she looked terrible in that end. Ronda Rousey at the end of the match beats everybody up, referees, backstage attendants, everybody. I think that was the heel turn for her, which is in the end is a smart play. But it didn't get over as well as something like that could have, because of the obvious fact that Rousey was right. She was angry about not being the champion because she tapped Liv Morgan out first. And you could argue that, hey, I held that move in because I didn't like get my shoulder up because she had already tapped out. And so what you have here is a heel, a newly turned heel that is going to completely make sense with its audience that saw the same thing. And you've got Liv Morgan, the babyface, who is running counter to what the audience is feeling. That's a mistake. That's not how you want these two to interact, and not just these two, but any heel and babyface. The heel has to be the one that's kind of outside the bounds of realism in terms of how they think of themselves, their situation, their opponents. There's a lot that factors into it, but you can't do what they did and expect to get away with that. So, boy, yeah. Not good. You wonder what's going to happen. I mean, like if you're going to go with Rousey and Becky at WrestleMania, well, you got to start getting there. And that means probably taking the title back from Liv Morgan, and we'll see. I think Liv is doing fine, but she just, I don't know. She continues to just kind of miss that little bit of an if factor that she just has not found yet from a character perspective. And when she does, I think she'll be a force to be reckoned with, but she has to be able to have that freedom to do so. And then last but not least, on this Shooting the Breeze episode of the Fireside Chat, talking SummerSlam 2022, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. This was tremendous. This was absolutely tremendous. Epic. It's an insane match, and all of those things, like insane, tremendous, epic. This is what it needed to be. This is what this last match between the two needed to be. And given the stigma around it really needed to be that, because it really needed to stand on its own as like, hey, we knew this match was going to be as good as it was, which is why we decided to go with it for like a 8th time or something like that, right? Like, you had to have something special, and they did. Watch the match back. I watched it back, and the heat, the buzz in the building. Like if you're wondering why WWE goes to what they go to and do what they do on these big shows, watch those entrances. Like it's that heat that makes this interesting. It's like Reigns and Lesnar keep getting put together because of that reaction, because of that simmering heat, because of that simmering tension, because of the buzz in the building that you can actually feel when you're in there. That's why their matches feel big. The problem was their matches felt big and the crowd was reacting to them in a big way, but the matches themselves never really delivered. They never really got to the point where they mirrored up with the build. And this did. This did. And I think that made things special. It made things make a little bit more sense. It made things, fit together. You're not swimming upstream on anything. This was tremendous in that regard. Let's talk the big moment. I mean, it's so cool. Lesnar gets in the damn tractor. This is real life. Gets into the tractor, puts the lifting part of the tractor underneath, pushes the ring a little bit, first of all, and then puts the the lifting part of the tracker and lifts the ring into the air. One side lifts it up, so it's at a point, and then Roman Reigns tumbles down the other side because it's about, I don't know, maybe 15 feet in the air, maybe a little less. That's a hell of a damn spot. That's such a good spot. Like a chef's kiss type spot. And it wasn't just that spot either. They're like, they told you they were going to kill each other out there, and the ringside area looked that way. They played into story, they played into narrative, they played into both characters. It was so well done. It's so perfect. And just, God, I can't get over the tractor. I cannot get over the tractor. What did you guys think? Did you like the finish? Do you agree with the decision to go with Roman Reigns? I think that was kind of an obvious one, especially given the fact that that Lesnar has been, less than happy about everything going on with Vince McMahon. So, yeah, Roman's was the way to go, and it should have been the way to go. This is what you do with your top star. This is what a company like AEW does not have right now, where you can just build around just whoever the champion is, and then you go. Like that's not on the table. So, yeah, I really like this match. It stands out. I think it's going to be memorable in that regard. People will remember. Wade said this on the post PLE roundtable for VIP members that this event, this SummerSlam event will be remembered for this match and for that huge spot with the ring. And that's a pretty good thing coming out of your first night running a PLE which Triple H is doing right now. So it's an interesting night altogether. I gave Roman and Brock 4.5 stars. So really solid grade. But I thought it was that good. I really thought it was that good. Oof. Okay, what time is it here? I'm yawning. I've been yawning like crazy. It's been a long weekend. But hey, thanks for being with me. Thanks for shooting the breeze on WWE SummerSlam. If you haven't done so already, huge favor, like, subscribe. That helps us out. It helps us grow, helps us get new audiences, which help us grow. It's grow. Subscribe, like the videos, tell a friend. That'd be much anticipated. And then of course, keep it locked to the page. We've got news updates going up all the time. We've got some special interviews that are up there right now with Laredo Kid, Josh Alexander, Gianna Perrazzo, Jordan Grace, Eric Young, and the list goes on and on and on. But really cool interviews, really insightful interviews, really transparent interviews on the part of the talent. So I think you'll really enjoy that. I think you'll really enjoy that. That said, we'll stop shooting the breeze right there. Thank you for joining me. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn, and we will catch you guys next time.